Hi, everyone. This is Sarah Ghoshal, and I want to talk to you a little bit about teaching remotely and kind of fostering consistency and engagement in an online um, environment. This is, of course, helpful if you're teaching an online or a hybrid class. But in addition, if you are teaching a traditional face to face class, you may need to attend a conference. There may be a snow day. You could be homesick. And I find that creating ways for students to work with each other and with you online and remotely allows for a certain amount of consistency that might not be there if you kind of have to just cancel class and push everything off until the next week or the next class. So I'm going to do this in a series of short videos. And this first one, I want to focus on the discussion forums in Canvas. I use them very regularly. And what you're looking at right now, this is my homepage for my online RIT 106 class. So the class is fully online, and we use discussions very, very consistently and intensely in this class, as it takes the place of a face-to-face interaction in the classroom. My students are actually required to engage in the discussions 3 times a week for attendance. Now, you will not be necessarily doing that, but you can use many of the same kind of methods that I use in order to be able to continue doing whatever it is you were going to do in class that day and not lose a day from your semester. We all know how frustrating that can be. So if we click on discussions, you can see that it's quite easy to create a discussion. If you've never done it before, you can just hit add discussion up here. You create the title, and I will show you what I include in the content afterwards. But something very important to do, besides checking off to allow threaded replies here, is also to check off users must post before seeing replies. What this allows for is for original content. It stops students from reading each other's posts and then kind of piggybacking off of them instead of coming up with their own ideas. Which is nice. And then what you can do in addition to that is go to the settings page on your course as a whole. And if you scroll down to more options, you'll see there are a list of checkboxes. And you can also uncheck let students edit or delete their own discussion posts. And what that does is it makes it so that students cannot post something, type one word, and then delete it just so they can see each other's posts. And it all sounds a little underhanded, but really it helps so that students can come up with original content, really think for themselves. And then when they go to respond to each other later, which I'll get to in a moment, they can work off of each other's ideas. So the best way that I find to do these discussions is to give students a little bit of flexibility. Typically for an online class or a hybrid class, I will give my students 24 to 48 hours to complete the original discussion post. For something where you're just replacing a traditional course for one day or even 2, I would try to give them that same kind of flexibility, or at least give them until like 11:59 p.m. that night to get it done. And you can set that in the settings when you are creating the discussion, when you want it available until, and you can close it after a certain time. And of course, warn them that you are doing so. So what I do in my discussions is I try to make it as personable as I can. So you'll see here that I have a video. It's a very personable video. You can see in the video, and I'll show you just a snippet of it in a moment, that I'm in my home. I try to be familiar with the students. I try not to speak so professionally or academically, and you can't see me, but I'm using air quotes when I say that. And I just really try to make it so that the students feel comfortable. Especially in an online class, that's important because they can see me when they wouldn't usually. But for you, I think it's important too to foster that consistency. They usually see you 2 days a week. You've had to cancel class on a Thursday, they still see you. And I think that, it's really important to students staying engaged with the material. So I have this video where I detail everything. And then I have 2 sections underneath. I have the specific requirements for this discussion post, and then I have requirements for all discussion posts that I copy and paste down at the bottom. And so for the online class, it explains that it counts as attendance and so on. But for here, you might include here in general that this counts as attendance for that one day, that they have to post the original post by, let's say, 11:59 p.m. that night, and then they have to respond to a fellow student by, let's say, 11:59 p.m. the following night. And then before they come to the next class, check and see if anybody has responded to them review everything, and answer any questions that have been asked of them. So really you're asking them to engage in this specific discussion 3 times before the next class period. And I think that what that does is it allows for an actual conversation. Although in this way you can't do a synchronous conversation, asynchronicity will work as long as you give them enough time to complete each thing. So again, what we say is, number 1, okay, you tell them, okay, by tonight, let's say the class is on a Thursday, by Thursday night at 11:59 p.m., you must complete the original discussion post. And I typically do about 500 words, which is about 2 pages, Microsoft Word pages, double spaced for the original post. And then you can say, by Friday night at 11:59 p.m., which gives them another full 24 hours, you should respond to a classmate in at least 250 words. Don't just tell them whether or not you agree with them, but really talk about, analysis of the specific material, bring in specific examples that you think will add to what they've already said, and really try to move the discussion forward. And then you tell them, okay, our next class is on Tuesday. Sometime before Tuesday, please go back, read everybody's responses so that you're familiar with the discussion, because we will touch upon it in our next class on Tuesday. See if anyone has responded to you. Make sure that you talk back to them, answer any questions that have been asked of you. I also have colleagues that say that at the bottom of the original post, they should ask a question. And that's very helpful as well, to say, write your 500 words, or let's say even 400 words. And then in the remaining 100 words, ask questions of the people who might want to respond to you. So let's say you are writing about central claims, right? And you have included the students have included a few possible central claims for their essays, and they've maybe explained how they might be effective and what they want to write about for their essays. And then at the bottom, the question might be, which central claim do you think is most effective and why? Do you think any of my claims are not effective and why? And really kind of get them talking about that writing process, or even the reading process if you're analyzing a reading for this class period. If you do this way, it will keep the students engaged all the way through until your next class, and you won't have to kind of worry about them missing out on something or having to revise your syllabus, which we all know is the worst. So I hope this is helpful, and keep a lookout for my other videos where I will talk about other ways to foster this kind of engagement and conversation remotely.